Alabama. Sure, it's famous for Southern charm, football Saturdays, and a whole lot of history. But there's another side to the Yellow Hammer State, and one that's way darker. We're talking unsolved murders, UFO sightings, and people who just seem to vanish into thin air. Now, some of these cases are so bizarre that even decades later, they're still keeping cops, locals, and skeptics up at night. So welcome to Scary Mysteries. Here are Alabama's darkest unsolved mysteries. Number 5. Amp Reynolds and the Missing Six. It was just after 2 a.m. on May 8, 1999, when 7 friends piled into a beat-up 1986 Chevy Caprice outside the Hideaway Club in Opp, Alabama. The night was humid as usual down there, the air thick and heavy, and the streets were relatively quiet, except for that burgundy car rolling away from the neon glow of the bar. Among them was James Amp Reynolds, a 28-year-old father working to keep his life together. But before the sun came up, 6 people from that car would vanish without explanation. When they were finally found months later, one was still missing. Now, the group was made up of 7 young people, most of them in their 20s, a couple of them a little younger, living small-town lives in Covington County. And that night, they left the Hideaway with plans to head towards a friend's place. According to some witnesses, Lamar Stackhouse was driving, though no one ever confirmed it. Now, either way, they never made it. By the following morning, calls started coming in from worried family members. None of the 7 had come home. And for months, the case went nowhere. No skid marks leading into a ditch or a body of water. No abandoned car, and no word from any of them. It was beyond eerie because clearly something bad had happened, but no one knew what it was. But then came September of 1999, and everything changed when a late summer drought dropped the water level of the Pea River. The locals noticed something that didn't belong near Ballard Bridge, the outline of a car just beneath the surface. When investigators pulled it out, and they knew immediately what they found. Inside the submerged Caprice were the remains of 6 of the missing friends. That discovery was horrific, but the saving grace was that at least now they had answers. Some of them. Authorities worked carefully, pulling each body from the vehicle. At that point, they were badly decomposed from months in the water, but all 6 were accounted for. All except one. And James Amp Reynolds was not there. And his friends and family had been bracing themselves for confirmation that he was dead, but instead his absence only deepened the mystery. The first assumption was simple. Maybe Reynolds had been ejected in the crash. Investigators sent divers and search teams along the banks of the Pea River, combing for any sign of him, but nothing turned up. Others wondered if he'd somehow escaped before the car went under, but if that was true, where did he go? And why didn't he come forward? And then there's the darker theory, that his body was removed from the car before it was ever discovered, which would mean someone knew a lot more than they were telling. In the years since, the facts haven't gotten any clearer, and the official record lists the case as a single vehicle accident. Today, James's name lives on in databases like NamUs and on the Alabama Cold Case website. And he's still missing, and his family has never stopped searching for answers. And in the small towns of Covington County, people still whisper about Amp. Whether he drowned unseen, escaped and disappeared on his own, or became the victim of something far more sinister. Number 4. Vanished in Opp. We're back to the same location. I'm 17 years old, smart and funny. She was just a small-town girl who had her whole life stretched out in front of her. But in August of 1997, in the city of Opp, Alabama, Kimberly Ramer vanished. Nearly 3 decades later, her disappearance still hangs over the community, and her mother has never stopped asking what happened. Kimberly was literally the definition of an all-American teen. A bright smile, good grades, a love for sports. Her mom Sue remembers her as full of promise, and in the random blink of an eye, all the hope she had for her little girl disappeared. It all went down on the evening of August 15th, and Kimberly went to her boyfriend's house after softball to hang out. It was an uneventful Friday night and pretty standard. Then left his place around 11 p.m., headed back to her father's home where she was living. That's the last time anyone saw her alive. The following day, Sue got a phone call from Kimberly's dad, Joe, who had just returned from out of town asking, "Is she with you?" And her answer was no. She was supposed to be with him, but she wasn't. Nobody knew where she had gone. Her car was parked in the driveway of her dad's house, so she at least made it there. And panic gripped Sue immediately when she found that out. And Kimberly was a good kid, not the type to disappear without telling anyone. And if she was gone and hadn't said anything, well, it meant something was terribly wrong.
Kimberly would not have gone off and not told somebody, because she wasn't like that. I was just getting scared, because I was thinking, oh my God, something's happened to her. I don't know what.
The initial investigation was led by a young officer named David Harrell, and just 1 year into his law enforcement career. And he remembers the feeling of an entire town on edge, a sense of dread spreading through the streets. Everybody wanted to find her. Inside the house, there was no sign of forced entry or struggle, but still, signs that she hadn't left by choice. Beyond her car being still parked outside, her contact lenses were left in the bathroom, and those she needed. Her purse, shoes, and other personal items were still inside the home, but didn't add up. Harold later confirmed investigators found indications that possibly pointed towards someone snatching her up, though they never fully disclosed those details. As he put it, there was evidence, some indication that she was not taken from that house on her free will. Over the years, police chased down dozens of leads, and some tips led them to rural fields and remote wooded areas. And at one point, authorities even dug up a property in Florida, convinced her remains might be hidden underground, but every search came up empty. And with no crime scene and no body, all investigators were left with were theories. And one possibility is that she was attacked inside her home and taken quietly into the night. Another is that she willingly stepped outside, maybe with someone she knew and even trusted, and just never made it back. What they've never believed, though, is that she ran away, and everything she needed was still at the house. She had no money with her, no clothes, no plan. Whatever happened to Kimberly, it happened against her will. That time moves differently for the families of the missing. Days turn into years, and hope becomes both a lifeline and a torment. For Sue, every sunrise brings the same mission, and find out what happened to her daughter. Alabama calls itself the city of opportunity, but for nearly 30 years, one family's opportunity has been denied. A chance to say goodbye and a chance to lay their daughter to rest.
I want to be able to bury her. I just hope we can find her. Please, God, help us. Please let us have some answers about Kimberly.
If you know anything about what happened to Kimberly Ramer, contact the Ott Police Department or the Walton County Sheriff's Office. Number 3, the Fyffe UFO mystery. On paper, Fyffe, Alabama is the definition of small-town America. Fewer than 2,000 people, a tight-knit community, and a high school football team that racks up state championships like it's their job. But back in February of 1989, football wasn't the reason reporters and satellite trucks descended on this tiny corner of DeKalb County. Instead, it was something far stranger, something that lit up the sky and left the entire town asking if they had just been visited by beings from somewhere far beyond Earth. It started on February 11th. A local dispatcher named Sheila Smith picked up the first call. a nervous voice reported strange lights over the countryside. When Police Chief Junior Garmany and Assistant Chief Fred Works drove out to investigate, they expected to find a helicopter or maybe a plane making an unusual pass. Instead, what they saw left them speechless. Suspended in the air above County Road 43 was a massive, glowing object. Some would later describe it as banana-shaped, and others as a wide triangle. It glowed with bright lights at its top, bottom, and center, its outline shimmering an eerie shade of green. And the strangest part, not a single sound. Both officers knew this was no helicopter or plane. It was something neither of them had ever seen before, and they weren't the only ones who saw it. Over the course of 2 consecutive nights, more than 50 residents of Fyffe witnessed the exact same thing. They saw the silent craft hover at odd angles, dart across the horizon, and vanish into the darkness as police tried to chase it. This wasn't just a handful of people catching a trick of the light. This was the entire community swearing they saw the same unexplained phenomenon that appeared to be watching them.
There was red lights at the top and the bottom, and green lights that outlined it, and bright light that would come right through the middle of it. It would turn while we were watching it, and just like looking at a real pretty fireworks. There was no sound or anything that went out.
Before long, the little farming town was totally overwhelmed. News crews rolled in. Souvenir makers flocked to make a quick buck by selling banana-shaped earrings in honor of the object's shape. And Fyffe found itself thrust into the national spotlight as Alabama's UFO capital.
A local business printed this t-shirt. It says, "Welcome home, E.T." And someone created their own version of a banana-shaped lighted object.
Skeptics came out suggesting the usual. Everything from it being a military aircraft to a weather balloon. But those who stood under the glowing sky that February remained adamant it was nothing man-made. And so, just like hundreds of other UFO sightings, that's basically where the story ends. People saw something, but if you weren't one of them, then you find it all hard to believe. Decades later, the mystery has never been solved, but Fyffe hasn't let the story fade away. And every single August, the town gathers for its annual UFO Days festival. What began as a moment of confusion and fear has since become a celebration, complete with hot air balloon rides, live music, car shows, and parades. And parents who once witnessed the strange green glow now bring their kids to marvel at colorful balloons drifting across the same sky where the unidentified object once appeared.
It was natural for us to take on the UFO, which is an unforgettable family outing, and we enjoy this. It's a beautiful thing for the town of Fyffe to be able to do this.
It's ironic, really. The festival flyer makes a point of saying that the only flying objects you'll see during UFO days are balloons. Yet the real attraction is in what's in the air, the story that lingers in the back of everybody's mind. A reminder that on 2 nights in 1989, the ordinary skies of northeast Alabama became something extraordinary. Number 2, the mystery of Wanda Maze. In May of 1986, a young woman vanished from a home on Georgia Mountain in Alabama. What was left behind was hard to piece together. Blood on shattered glass, a torn nightgown by the water's edge, and a canoe drifting across the lake, empty except for more blood. And for 2 decades, her family was left wondering whether Wanda had been abducted, drowned, or perhaps stumbled into something much darker. Her story begins like many others, an ordinary evening, a family dinner and a last-minute decision to stay with relatives. But by dawn, Wanda was gone. The questions surrounding her disappearance would haunt investigators to this day. Wanda was born on August 19, 1959, in Panama, where her father served in the military. Her childhood stretched across Arkansas, Alabama, and Texas before she eventually settled in Arab, Alabama. By 1986, she was 26 years old, college graduate and working as a secretary at Redstone Arsenal, a U.S. Army post. But beneath the surface, Wanda was struggling. Her family later said that she'd been battling a chemical imbalance linked to dieting, which left her emotionally unstable. Panic attacks would strike without warning, leaving her terrified. On the night of May 11th, Wanda had dinner with her parents before heading to the home of her aunt and uncle, Tyrese and Betty Dorman, who lived near Gunnersville Lake. Instead of driving back to her apartment that night, though, she decided to spend the night right there in their guest room. The Dorman said she went to bed around 10:30 p.m. That would be the last confirmed sighting of her alive. At 5 a.m. when they tried to wake her, they found the guest bedroom locked, but no answer. After forcing the door, that's when they discovered the disturbing scene. The bed hadn't been slept in. Wanda's belongings were still neatly on the nightstand, but the window, double-pane Venetian glass, had been shattered from the inside. Drops of blood trailed across the frame, and no one in the house reported hearing a thing, but clearly a thing happened. Outside, the trail continued. Behind the house on the shore of the lake, searchers discovered Wanda's blood-stained nightgown. Nearby, an empty canoe floated across the water, and inside were more blood, later matched to Wanda's blood type. It appeared like she had fallen overboard, perhaps. And while investigators scrambled to make sense of all this, reports started to come in that literally muddied the waters. That very same morning, a motorist claimed to have seen a young woman resembling Wanda walking along State Route 62. She wore oversized jeans, her hair dripping wet, as if she had just been out swimming. The following day, 30 miles away in Huntsville, another witness said she spotted Wanda in the back of a car with two unidentified men at a convenience store. The witness thought the woman looked scared. Moments later, she saw her again, this time at a payphone under the watchful eye of one of those men.
It stuck in my mind because she didn't belong with them. They were very rough-looking guys, and she looked frightened. She looked like she was trying to get my attention.
And not knowing if the sightings were in fact real, the authorities had to rule things out one by one. They extensively searched the lake for her body, but turned up nothing. The blood in the canoe deepened suspicions. Was it part of an accident, or had Wanda been attacked? Marshall County investigators brought in homicide specialist Edward Teal, who later called it the most mysterious case he'd ever seen. Despite national exposure through Unsolved Mysteries, the trail went cold.
I believe Wanda's alive. Jim and I pray together for Wanda every night. And I believe that God is honoring that prayer and that we will get Wanda back.
Her family always clung to hope, but as years passed, the absence of answers only made her disappearance more haunting. And then, 17 years later, in October of 2003, a hiker foraging for ginseng stumbled upon human bones at the base of a 150-foot cliff less than 2 miles from the Dorman home. And those remains sat unidentified for 5 years until DNA testing in 2008 confirmed what the Maze finally had long feared. It was Wanda. The authorities ruled her death accidental. They concluded she had fallen from the cliff after leaving the house in a state of panic. Now, for some, the ruling was unsatisfying. How did her nightgown end up torn and bloody by the lake? Why was there so much blood in the canoe? And what about those eyewitness accounts that suggested she had been alive after her disappearance? Her brother John accepted the findings, pointing to Wanda's history of sudden, overwhelming panic attacks. To him, broken glass and her frantic escape from the house fit a tragic pattern. But still, as to what exactly went down that night in '86, well, nobody really knows for sure. Number 1. Forgotten in Tuscaloosa. Good old Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It's a lively college town, home of the Crimson Tide, football glory, and the energy of a growing city. But beneath that exciting surface is a darker story that rarely makes the headlines. And for decades, families here have lived with unanswered questions and a constant ache. Cold cases that have never been solved despite years of searching for the truth. Since the 1980s, this place has about 24 unsolved homicide cases, and the following are just a few of them. On the night of April 21st, 1973, 18-year-old Paula Ellis rode her bicycle from her dorm at Martha Parham Hall on the campus of the University of Alabama to an all-night concert on Woods Quad. The Nitty Gritty Dirt Band was playing, and hundreds of students filled the area. And sometime in the early morning hours, Paula just vanished. Her bicycle was found parked neatly near the concert grounds, but Paula never came back for it. By 9 a.m. on Easter Sunday, police were alerted to a disturbing scene. And Paula's purse had been discovered on a bridge over Mill Creek in Northport. The contents were scattered across the road. Not long after, investigators found her body in a roadside ditch just 100 yards away. She was partially nude, her clothing missing, and her life brutally taken. The autopsy revealed that Paula had been strangled, likely with a belt. Her estimated time of death was placed between 1 and 4:30 a.m. The intimate and cruel nature of the murder shook Tuscaloosa as a whole. What followed after that was basically chaos because multiple agencies began their own investigations separately. The University Police did one, Tuscaloosa PD did another, Northport PD was on their own, and the Alabama Bureau of Investigations did one. Instead of working together, they clashed, chasing leads in different directions. They all wanted to find her killer and yet couldn't get their egos out of the way. In fact, the frustrations of Paula's case directly led to the creation of the Tuscaloosa Homicide Unit, now known as the Violent Crimes Unit, a multi-agency team built to ensure such mistakes don't happen again. But even with that reform, Paula's killer walked free. Nearly 2 decades after the death of Paula, Tuscaloosa was rocked again by another brutal and baffling crime. On April 16th of 1991, 32-year-old Jennifer Dortch was found murdered inside her mobile home on the outskirts of town. She had been stabbed to death in what investigators described as an act of sheer violence and rage. The crime scene was bloody, chaotic, and personal, yet no one could answer the simple question, why? Jennifer wasn't involved in crime of any sort, and she didn't run with dangerous people or live a high-risk lifestyle. To her family and friends, she was an ordinary young woman living a quiet life, which only made her murder all that more disturbing. Detectives collected evidence, interviewed neighbors, and chased some leads, but one by one those leads went cold. There were no arrests, no charges, and no clear motive ever established. More than 30 years later, her case remains unsolved. Was she targeted by someone she trusted, or was her killer a stranger who managed to slip away unnoticed? For her family, the pain has never gone away, and the silence of the unsolved continues to hang heavy over Tuscaloosa. Just a few years later, on November 13th of 1996, Tuscaloosa faced yet another violent mystery. 31-year-old Carrie Bowles was found shot to death inside her home in the Old Mill Trace subdivision. There were no signs of forced entry there, leading investigators to believe she may have known her killer, but if she did, she never got the chance to tell anyone. Her death hit especially hard because home is supposed to be the one place we feel safe. For Carrie, it became the place where her life ended. And yet, despite the violent nature of the crime, and despite the possibility that her killer was someone she knew, nobody has ever been held accountable. That's 3 women, 3 unsolved murders, different years, different methods, but the same outcome. all unsolved. And Tuscaloosa is not the largest city in Alabama, yet these cases reveal something chilling. Even in communities where everyone seems to know each other, killers can disappear into the background, hidden by time, fear, or simply the flaws of an investigation. The Tuscaloosa County Sheriff's Office still lists their cases as unsolved. The files remain open, waiting for the day when a new lead, a DNA hit, or a witness finally brings the truth into the light. Until then, though, these crimes still hang heavy over Tuscaloosa. And these are not just statistics, these are people. Women who had names, dreams, and futures. And the question remains, how many killers walked free, blending into everyday life and never facing justice? So there were just a few of Alabama's strangest mysteries, stories that blur the line between the explainable and the unexplainable. Hope you all enjoyed it, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you want even more exclusive mysteries from us, well, check out our Vault collection over on Patreon. There's a whole lot of weird over there that I know y'all are going to like to uncover. So go enjoy, stay safe out there. I'll see you soon.